Halo 2 took the world by storm leading up to its original release in 2004. Over 15 years later, does the campaign still hold up today, or is it just propped up as a legend, mostly due to nostalgia? I will be reviewing Halo 2 with a fresh perspective from today, as well as keeping in mind the original hardware limitations of the Xbox. Same as last time, I'm going to be reviewing the campaign as a standalone entity on my Series S through the anniversary edition of the game included in the Master Chief Collection. I will go over some of my thoughts and opinions about the anniversary edition of this game, but will primarily be focusing on the original vision and direction when giving this campaign a score. Being as old as the title is, there will be some minor spoilers throughout, but I will be avoiding any major details to the plot. This is the second installment to my mainline Halo campaign reviews leading up to the release of Halo Infinite, so feel free to check out those other reviews once they come out, or if they're already out, then you'll see them in the description below. Without further ado, let's get into the story. Halo 2 continues where Halo Combat Evolved left off and tees up nicely for Halo 3 to directly follow it. We start out with being shown the different perspectives of the aftermath resulting from the destruction of the previous Halo. As Master Chief and Sergeant Johnson are being recognized and adored for their success and bravery, the soon-to-be Arbiter is being branded for his failure to keep the ring safe. The Covenant launches an all-out attack on Earth after discovering its location, forcing an unavoidable conflict that eventually leads to the discovery of a second Halo ring. To avoid potential annihilation, Master Chief once again touches down on the Halo with intentions of destroying it and saving humanity. You'll be bouncing between both Master Chief and the Arbiter, leading to an iconic eventual meeting. Having two playable characters in a first-person shooter is an interesting concept when implemented due to not having the preferred point of view for this type of storytelling. It works pretty well to tell both perspectives, but I did find myself occasionally forgetting who I was playing as, but I also forget where I park more than I'd like to admit, so there's that. Halo 2 does a better job over the original of fleshing out its cast of characters. Sergeant Johnson gets a lot more time to shine and show his depth as a character. Even Master Chief expresses himself more in the sequel while still remaining a vessel for the player to explore the universe. The cliffhanger ending didn't offend me or wow me, but I think it worked perfectly fine. I may have had a different opinion in 2004 with no choice but to wait 3 more years, but I think it does do a good job of setting up hype and excitement for Halo 3. I think Halo 2's story and characters have held up well to the test of time, worthy of cinema in my opinion. On a presentation level, Halo 2 uses the established art direction from Halo Combat Evolved with an emphasis on expanding. There are several new concepts implemented throughout, like a greater focus on verticality and moving platforms, giving each level a more dimensional feel. As I mentioned earlier, I played the anniversary edition of the game and am primarily focusing on the bones of this title instead of hyper-focusing on the updates and changes for this specific version. But after playing through the entire campaign, I do want to insert my opinions about these new visuals. I love the updated and refreshed visuals during gameplay. It felt like I was playing a real modern title while remaining mostly faithful to the original vision. Unlike in the anniversary edition of Combat Evolved, this remaster for Halo 2 is visually consistent throughout your entire time playing, feeling like a real proper update. Now, where this version of the visuals falls apart for me is in the cinematic cutscenes. At first I was like, wow, these cutscenes look great, they look really good, like a CGI movie you could see in theaters. But a few cutscenes later, I was starting to like them less and less. I couldn't quite place my finger on why, but eventually I came to the conclusion I don't like them because of how disconnected they felt. There is a major difference between what you're playing in mission versus what cutscenes play between the missions. And the J.J. Abrams lens flares didn't help me change my mind at all either. What makes this such a shame is the fact that the in-game graphics look so good they could have easily presented the story impactfully with the in-game engine. Visuals aside, the music and sound effects of Halo 2 are epic and timeless in both the original score as well as in this remastered cover. It's not a beat-for-beat accurate recreation, but the new audio is still great. I'm not sure how many developers would have thought to inject some rock and metal into a sci-fi space opera, but it totally works here, adding a new level of epicness. The visuals and audio work together to immerse you in the totality of Halo. As the player, you are taken on an adventure to new locations, adding to the existing lore of the universe. It was exciting to visit 26th century Earth, as well as giving insight to who we as the player are representing and fighting for. A feeling of exploration exists throughout the variety of levels, diving deeper into the world of the Covenant, mankind, and the Flood, all at the same time. Much like in the first game, you as Master Chief feel like the queen on a chessboard. Important and powerful, yet still just a singular piece in the grand scheme of things. This balance is crucial when distinguishing how every action has a reaction throughout the greater universe. The push and pull between the Arbiter and Master Chief is also a perfect way the game portrays this theme. Halo 2 adds new perspectives on a narrative level, but is just as additive when it comes to the assortment of new toys, and by that I mean guns and vehicles. Most of the beloved classics from Combat Evolved are present, with the only notable absence being the assault rifle. There are a ton of new weapons overall, with Halo 2 doing an especially good job of giving the Covenant more to work with, including the outstanding energy sword. While I'm talking about weapons, I have to mention the addition of dual wielding. This comes at a price of grenade use and melee attacks, but dual wielding definitely comes in handy for certain situations, adding more depth to your approach. There aren't as many new vehicles added this time around, however, there are quite a bit more opportunities to use some of the existing fan favorites. Many of the existing vehicles have been upgraded with new controls and combat methods. All of the enemy types make a return from the original Halo with some new additions. You'll still be fighting hordes of Flood, Elites, Hunters, Jackals, and Grunts, but now you can also add Brutes and Drones to that list. The new additions of weapons, vehicles, and enemies serve as new variables in an equation. This added complexity altogether equates to more variety and more fun for us, the player. There are also some tweaks implemented that make a big difference throughout, like the better fall distance and the less frequent hostless flood. One note I want to throw in about my experience with the difficulty would have to be a sudden spike halfway through. The first half of the campaign felt pretty mild compared to Combat Evolved, but somewhere along the line it got quite a bit harder. Not a big deal, but just an interesting thing I wanted to put out there. As I mentioned, the levels here do a fantastic job of giving the player depth. The boundaries of each section are hidden well, often feeling open and free. When it comes to the quality of missions, Halo 2 is great, but is less consistent over the first title. There is a reoccurring annoying reliance on idling. Fending off enemies on a moving gondola is fun, but waiting for the sake of waiting to progress is not. Halo 2 adds on to the solid foundation of Combat Evolved's gameplay by introducing new elements while still finding a great balance. The reoccurring theme of Halo 2 for me throughout this review has been expansion. This term is perfect when referring to the new assortment of guns, vehicles, and enemies, as well as the story itself being told from a new perspective, taking players for a deeper dive into the universe of Halo. Halo 2 expands on everything that was good about the original while exploring new ideas and concepts to great success. 9 out of 10. Next up is Halo 3, so keep a lookout for that. I want to hear your thoughts and opinions down below. I want to thank you all for watching, and until next time, see ya!